An Australian Army slouch hat tumbling lazily down an Adelaide road is Peter Corey's only clear memory of his father leaving for war. We were catching the tram into the city, and around about Nottage Terrace his hat blew off, Mr. Corey recalled. The conductor stopped the tram while Dad raced back to get his hat. That's about all I remember. Peter Corey was 4 at the time. He would be almost 8 years old, another whole lifetime, before he saw his father, Staff Sergeant Jack Corey, again. By contrast, Mr. Corey's memories of the day his dad came home are vivid. The platform at the station was crowded, but I actually picked him out on the train looking out the window as the train pulled in, he said. Jack Corey was taken prisoner when Singapore fell to the Japanese in February 1942. Britain's then Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, described it as the worst disaster and the greatest capitulation in British history. Along with tens of thousands of other Allied soldiers, British, Indian and Australian, Jack Corey was sent to the notorious Changi prison. It would be months before people back home learned about their fate, according to the Australian War Memorial's Dr. Lachlan Grant. During the Second World War, when 22,000 Australians became prisoners of war, they literally disappeared for 3.5 years, Dr. Grant said. The first mail delivery to the Australians in Changi arrived in March 1943, so that's over 12 months after they'd been imprisoned. There was very little contact and, in some cases, no contact at all. But Jack Corey was one of the lucky ones and managed to maintain correspondence with his family back home. Most of those letters are now with the War Memorial in Canberra. Peter Corey recently gifted them to the institution because he feared for their future without expert care. If Wednesday kept them at home, they'd have just disintegrated, he said. While the pages are now fragile, the sentiments they convey are as clear and strong as they were 75 years ago. In one letter, Jack Corey writes to his young son, "Your dad is quite lonely without you. Can you still climb? I would like to feel you climbing on my shoulders now." Through all his letters, Jack Corey weaves a common thread, writing of the little things that, in total, make a family life. He was very tender with his writing. Mr. Corey asks whether his son is remembering to oil the wheels on his bike, whether he's been having ice cream and, of course, whether he is being good for his mother. The soldier also sought to make his circumstances, both before and during Changi, more familiar to his worried loved ones. There are hundreds and hundreds of little boys and girls in this locality. They all play like you do, possibly some of the same games you play at, Mr. Corey wrote. That speaks to a curious meshing of interests between the prisoners and their captors. Neither the Japanese nor the Australians wanted the outside world to know of Changi's conditions. The Japanese censored what the prisoners wrote, but there was a lot of self-censorship going on too, Dr. Grant said. At the end of the day they did want their families back home worrying about them in their situation as well.